All right, I would like to call this meeting to order. That we are having our regular scheduled meeting, 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 27th, here in the glorious Bangor City Hall chambers. And I would like to welcome everybody and ask that we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty. All right, fantastic. So tonight we have a very, very special recognition, and I'm going to let Superintendent Taker kick us off.
My pleasure. The Bangor School Department and the Bangor School Committee will recognize with gratitude Committee Member Warren Caruso for his 12 years, 2018 to 2021 and 2008 to 2017 of loyal and faithful service as a member of the Bangor School Committee, and 5 years, 2019 to 2020 and 2023 to 2017 as the Bangor School Committee Chair.
Excellent. So Warren, we wanted to thank you all, and we wanted to really, we wanted to give you something, and I'm going to read this and then I'll give it to you, but I have to be able to see it to read it. So this is from your school committee, and this is presented to Warren Caruso for his 12 years of service to the Bangor School Committee. Your hard work and dedication to the students of Bangor will always be remembered and appreciated. And it's dated today, and this is from all of us.
Thank you.
Yay.
Well, thank you very much. I didn't prepare a speech, but I've never been one to be lost for words. But I really want to say what a wonderful experience this has been. Thank everyone that worked with, the administrators, to school staff, and particularly to Superintendent Betsy Webb, who I was chair with for 5 years, and to just have the utmost respect for the work that she did and where she brought built on the success of the Bangor district, and feel like so many good things happened while I sat on the committee because of all the hard work that was being done in the district. I looked at it as an incredible learning experience. I think not just the knowledge gained from the education and the system, but just from a leadership standpoint and working with all you wonderful people. But more so, it was a labor of love. Bangor is a city I've spent my entire life in, and I credit the education I got in the Bangor school system to being where I am today. Wherever that is, I don't know, but I feel good about my life. And I was a student that was a low income student. I was a free and reduced student who showed up every day to get breakfast at Mary Snow or whatever school I was at. And the teachers that influenced my life, from my third grade teacher to Mrs. Topliff, who taught me to read. And yes, I was third grade, probably with a below reading level that inspired me to become better. Mrs. Jones is my junior, sophomore, and senior year English teacher at the high school, was just a wonderful person that inspired me that I could do college work. Mr. White, I still would love to see him along the way, but fourth grade teacher at Mary Snow gave me the confidence in athletics to believe that we could beat the fifth graders, and we did regularly. And coaches like Neil Waterman and OJ Logue, who I only had for a year, but these people were just incredible influences in my life that led me to believe I could be more. And I think that's what education is all about. And I think it's at the heart of what we do at Bangor, is getting the students that are in our city, that range from free and reduced lunch to some very, very influential families, so to speak, all coming together at the high school and learning with the same opportunities for AP classes and athletics and extracurricular activities, and getting the support they need to take them wherever they want to go. And I've never left town, which I'm perfectly okay with, because I love Bangor. And I think it's a great place to be and a great place to raise a family. And I certainly want to thank everyone I've worked with over the years. I'm very proud of what's happened in the 12 years that we have had together, and I know the future is bright. And it's not always about agreeing with everything that is going on. And I think those learning opportunities come with both when we're all in agreement, and even when there's some disagreement among board members or even staff. It's been just a wonderful experience. And again, thank you for all that you've done and the experience that you provided me.
Well, thank you. We are all better off, as are our students and our schools, for all the work that you've done, all the dedication. And I, for one, am grateful, and I am so grateful you've been here the past year to help me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you very much. And we
Thank you.
wish you the best of luck.
Well, I'll be around.
Excellent. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay, fantastic. Then this is our time for public comments. I ask if you could please come to the speaker, if you could state your name and your address, as long as you are over 18. I'm like, whoever wants to come up first. Yes, if the little green light is on, then you're good.
Hi, my name is registered have what I call the vendor support team or vendor it's to help train and on gender conforming students be able to safely come out in school to teachers, and so teachers will not out them. I don't really have any questions about it. I just would like, if anybody else has any questions about it, if you'd anything like that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. And I know that we are going to be getting a report later, and we are incredibly excited that you have, put in this work and to see where this is going to go next. So thank you. Was there anybody else who wanted to speak tonight? Was I?
That's it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Landon. All right, we have superintendent's proposals and updates.
I'm recommending the required annual approval of the comprehensive emergency management plan included in the packet in the public portion of the plan. If you would like to view the confidential portions of the plan, please contact Lori Mitchell.
Okay, and I need a motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then we have informational items.
Licensed psychologist, Dr. Tim Rogers, will provide a presentation on student behaviors.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Tager for inviting me here, and I thank you for giving me a time. I know most of you don't know me, but hi, Sue. How are you? I want to give you a little bit of background on myself, just very quickly. I've been a psychologist for 38 years, and 35 of that has been served in Maine. And I know that does not give me a right to call myself a Mainer. My grandparents weren't born here. My great-grandparents weren't born here. So I'm still not a Mainer, but this is my home. And I'm very dedicated to the public school system. And in fact, both of my children, who are now grown and have given me 5 grandchildren, are products of the Bangor School Department. Both of them graduated from Bangor High School with excellent educations. And my wife is an elementary school principal in a neighboring district. So I'm very committed to the public school model. But I wanted to share with you a little anecdote that I shared with Superintendent Tager. I was at breakfast with an older gentleman, a person pretty far removed from the school system. And he was curious as to what a school psychologist would do. He really was kind of surprised that schools would employ psychologists and didn't know why they would need that. So I started giving him a little generic example of the kind of things that we were dealing with. And I started talking about students who were swearing at their teachers. And I'm talking about Hall of Fame level swears. I'm talking about all of the big ones, okay? Children who are destroying property, children who are disrupting their classes, so much that their classmates had to be removed from the classroom situation. Kids who were kicking their teachers, hitting their teachers, spitting on their teachers. He sat there with his mouth open and he couldn't believe what I was describing was public school behavior. But what really blew him away is when I told him I was talking about kindergartners. Okay. He, like most people, I think, probably was pretty unaware of what kind of challenges we're facing in the public school system at this point. In 2018, I presented to the Southern Penobscot Consortium, and I talked about kind of the lessons I'd learned over 30 years of practice. And I focused quite a bit of that on the changing landscape in schools and what I saw as the increasing challenge to the public school system. And in my mind, that started sometime in the late 1990s, early 2000s, when we realized that the incidence of autism, which had been rated at about 1 in 1,000 live births, was down to about 1 in 150 live births. Okay. And we started seeing those children coming into school settings and requiring substantial levels of support. By the way, now the incidence is 1 in 54. Okay. So we were seeing just what I called at that time, the bus was coming. I said, the bus is coming and it's bringing very high needs kids to us and we need to be prepared for it. So we met with the regional special education folks. We did some planning and we started thinking about how we were going to integrate these high needs kids into our system. But we had no idea at that time that this was just the tip of the iceberg. This was just the starting point. And I used to talk about that bus arriving, and now I'm going to talk to you about the train, because the train is coming. And the train is bringing us some really particularly needy kids. I'm going to give you a handout. These are just some statistics about the kind of challenges that we're dealing with in schools these days. 14% of the children in Penobscot County live in poverty. 16% of them are food insecure. In the year 2017, there were 2,638 referrals to the Department of Health and Human Services for children in Penobscot County. That was a 10% increase over 2016, so it was a rising problem. There are no data since 2017 because the department stopped publishing that data. Okay. Out of those 2,638 referrals, 27% of them were substantiated as abuse or neglect. So we had approximately 712 kids in that 1 year in Penobscot County. 1 in 5 girls have reported that they've been sexually assaulted by age 17. So 60% of Maine children have experienced some sort of adverse childhood experience. That could include abuse or neglect. It could include domestic violence, death of a loved one. But we are talking about 60% of the kids in our system. We're just now starting to understand the impact of trauma on brain development in children. And we're recognizing now that trauma isn't a short-term problem, it is a long-term problem, and it creates problems for the kids from a neurological standpoint. 12% of the population of under age 5 in this state are in state care or custody. 23% of Maine teens admit to binge drinking. Binge drinking is defined as 5 drinks or more in one sitting. 6% of middle school students admit to binge drinking. As I just mentioned a minute ago, the incidence of autism spectrum disorder is now 1 in 54 live births. The incidence of ADHD is 14%. In 1997, the incidence was 6%. The incidence of behavior disorders like oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorder is cumulatively about 20%. 16% of Maine youth acknowledge severe depressive episodes. 16% of Maine teens have seriously considered suicide. And our rate in the state is 20% higher than the national average. 15 to 20% of Maine youth meet the criteria for an anxiety disorder. And we find fetal alcohol effects in approximately 5 to 7% of children. But the staggering figure to me, and the one I focused on a lot in 2018, is the impact of opioid births. Between 2012 and 2017, there were 4,877 Maine babies born addicted to opiates. We're not talking about children who were exposed to opioids in utero. We're talking about children who need detox when they're born. 4,877, that's almost 1,000 a year. And the number has not really gone down since that time. When you note those dates, 2012 to 2017, those children are now between the ages of 4 and 9. So they are now in the school system. Addicted mothers quadrupled from 1999 to 2014. In 2006, there were 201 addicted births. In 2017, there were 952. The current data for Maine looks like about 8 to 10% of live births. So almost 1 in 10 are born addicted. And about 1,000 babies per year. Penobscot County is slightly overrepresented. We're at about that 10% level, but the good news is in 2015, it was 18%. We were almost at 1 in 5 babies in 15. And those kids are, as I said, just hitting our schools. They're just moving into the system. They're into the pre-K, K, first, second, third, some in the 4th grade. Those kids are going to be moving up our system, and they're going to be presenting challenges to us. And I really need to point out that these kids are not equally distributed across the state. As I said before, Penobscot County is slightly overrepresented. Cumberland County does not have the same percentage of kids born addicted as Penobscot, for example. Aroostook County, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Aroostook County has the highest rate at about 18% right now. Okay. At the current rate, if nothing significant changes, by 2029, there will be 12,000 students in Maine schools who were born addicted to opioids. Okay? Now, that in itself is a frightening enough kind of thought. But when you think about the impact of that on the babies and the children and their learning and future, there are immediate sequelae of it, which is neonatal abstinence syndrome. The babies are born, they go through detox. That can take a month, sometimes 6 weeks for the child to be detoxified. They may require methadone. They may require morphine or Suboxone while they're being treated. But during that time, they're not having contact with their mothers. They're not bonding. They're not showing that connection if they're going through detox. The worst part is the long-term effects. And while we don't have a ton of data, the American Academy of Pediatrics has followed kids who were born addicted, and they're finding very clear neurological damage. Children are more likely to be microcephalic, small heads. They're more likely to be born with decreased cerebral volume, which is a nice way of saying their brains are smaller. Not a good thing. They have lower IQs. They're more prone to spina bifida. They have a higher incidence of learning disabilities. They have decreased attention and executive functioning. They have a higher incidence of behavioral issues over control groups, everything from autism to ADHD. But the thing that I think we're dealing with primarily, and I spend most of my time in the elementary schools, is the emotional regulation piece. There's very clear evidence that one of the areas damaged the most by opioid exposure is the amygdala. And if you're familiar with neurology, and I'm not a neurologist, but if you're familiar with that part of the brain, that's the part that controls emotional regulation. And they're showing that there's clear differences in the way children with opioid exposure are wired compared to those who weren't. And I think that explains that child who is destroying the classroom. That explains that child who's turning over desks and throwing things and not learning from the general kinds of supports we provide. Now, we have all those big numbers. What does that really mean? I want you to think about a class of 25 children. Just statistically, a class of 25 children. In a class of 25 children, 2 or 3 of them will probably live in poverty. 10 to 12 of them will have some sort of adverse childhood event. 2 or 3 of them will have a history of DHS involvement and maybe in state custody. 3 or 4 will have ADHD. 2 or 3 will have a behavior disorder like oppositional defiant disorder or conduct disorder. 2 or 3 will have depression. 4 or 5 will have an anxiety disorder. 1 or 2 will probably have fetal alcohol effects, and 2 or 3 will have been born addicted to opioids. Now, I know that adds up to more than 25 kids, okay? What that means is the kids are multiply affected. So a child with fetal alcohol syndrome is more likely to have ADHD, ODD, conduct disorder. A child with trauma history is more likely to have depression or anxiety. Now, I've talked about all this, and I haven't even mentioned the pandemic, okay? And the lost educational opportunities that these kids have had. So I think we want to think about this train coming toward us, bringing 12,000 kids with a history of opioid addiction at birth, in addition to the kids who we already were getting with ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder, depression and anxiety. And think about what we're going to be doing to get ready for that. Okay. Right now, those kids on the opioid problems are relatively contained in our elementary level. But those kids are going to move up through our grade levels. They're going to move up to the middle school. They're going to move up to the high school. And as much as we'd like to say that we could fix this, it's not going to be fixed by then. There's still going to be a major challenge that these kids present to us. We're already taxing the system. In 2013, Patty Rappaport gave me a tour of the building that they were planning to use for the Bangor Regional Program out by the airport. And at that time, we were walking through the building and she was talking about it, housing probably 25 kids. Well, right now we're at 40 and there are 2 outbuildings and there's no room at the end. Okay. In 2001, when we recognized those kids coming in with autism, we started one self-contained program at one elementary school in Bangor. And if I remember correctly, it had 3 kids. And now there are 9 self-contained programs in the elementary level containing 11 kids each. So 99 kids are in those programs. And yet we have more coming. And I don't want to sound like I'm predicting doom and gloom. I do think there are things we can do. But I think all of those are going to put taxes on our system. And we're going to be struggling with trying to meet the needs of these kids. When the Bangor Regional Program fills up, and when those self-contained programs fill up, and there are self-contained programs in the middle schools and there are self-contained programs at the high school, but they're quickly filling up because we have such a high need. What are we going to do then? Where are those kids going to go? How are we going to support them? And I think it's going to be really critical that we do some serious thinking, and I say we, talking to you, do some serious thinking about how you plan for this influx of kids, because I don't see this ending. I don't think this is the end of the train. My first recommendation is plan. Do some serious planning. Think about what is going to be necessary. I want to recognize people who are doing a wonderful job helping these kids already. There is a tremendous amount of effort and energy and talent being expended by the members of your school department, trying to work with these kids, prepare them, do the best they can. But if that child is in a regular education class, God forbid I'm that teacher of that 25 member class that has the kind of problems. If I don't have support, I'm going to need support in that situation. I'm a very, very big fan of teams. And I'm going to say that Lynn Silk came to me about 9 years ago and talked to me about starting a team at Vine Street School. And that team has met very consistently every Friday morning, very few missed days for the last 9 years. And that team has involved administration, myself, BCBAs, guidance counselors, special ed teachers, regular ed teachers. We've had nurses involved. We tried to get case managers involved. We had social workers involved. And all we do is plan. All we do is work on problem solving. And we do that sometimes at a micro level. We might take one child and talk about their situation and talk about what kind of resources we might bring to bear with that child. But we also do it at a macro level and talk about school-wide situations. How do we improve the climate in the building? How do we engage parents? How do we get resources from the community? I really believe that's a great model. I'm very invested in that model. We're moving that model into other elementary schools right now. But it really, in my mind, needs to move up through the grade levels. That level of support needs to be there. What it's going to require is personnel. It's going to require a commitment of people to be able to do that. We don't have enough psychologists. We don't have enough social workers. We don't have enough guidance staff to do everything in every meeting. At least that's my impression. I also think as a team, we should be thinking about how we can use our community. There are community supports out there, and I'm not endorsing anyone or saying anything bad about anyone, but there are programs like Penobscot Valley Community Services. There's Community Health and Counseling Services. There's Acadia Hospital. I think we need to be forming partnerships with those people, trying to establish some working relationships, because the person power that's going to be required is more than I think we have in our budget at this point. I don't know what other alternative funding sources might be out there, but we should be looking. I could go on with this. I'm pretty passionate about it, but I will stop at this point and see if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Very sobering. Are there any questions from the committee? Member Mundell?
You called it. Hi,
Hi.
thank you so much for that presentation. And it's nice to meet you because I've heard a lot about you and we haven't met.
Oh, gosh.
No, all good, all good. And I had a conversation with Principal Silk a while ago, and she told me all about what you've done over there. And I said, you know, we've got to do this in all the schools. It just sounds phenomenal. And she described how you've helped the teachers kind of translate behavior from things that kids are doing that are wrong to things that kids are doing because they've been traumatized. And we need to approach them from that perspective, which is different than when you're trying to discipline somebody. So I really appreciate that perspective being brought to the schools.
Thank you.
And everything you've said, I agree 100%. And you know, I've supported bringing in community groups to help us. We can't do this alone. And there are a lot of folks out there who are wanting to help. I guess one question I have, you've been a psychologist in Maine for a long time, and I'm new to Maine.
Mhm.
So it strikes me that there aren't very many opportunities for psychologists to train here, like a pre-doc internships. And so we're not turning out clinical psychologists like we need.
Right.
Am I perceiving that correctly?
I think that's accurate. The two training programs in the state are University of Southern Maine, which puts out school psychologists, and the University of Maine, it puts out doctoral level psychologists.
Right.
I've had much more contact and much more success in having interns come up from USM. There are several people who have done internships through my office. I have not had but one, I think, in 35 years come from the University of Maine.
Mhm.
Part of that is their focus is not on children in school age programming, but USM, their specific focus is child and school. But I will tell you, recruiting in this area is nearly impossible. I have had an ad, a continuing running ad for 6 years, trying to hire a psychologist to come into this area and help me out. And I've
Mhm.
not been able to find
Mhm.
any.
Yeah. So I think, I know that this is a bigger systemic issue, but
Right.
I know it's a challenge. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that brings to mind my thinking about kind of a tiered system of like training the trainers, like training other staff to do what you're doing, to kind of put feelers out into all the schools. Because what you're doing is so important.
Well, thank you. And I hate to say nice things about Lynn when she's sitting over there, but this was her baby. She created this, and I've just been thrilled to be part of it. It would not have happened if she had not gotten it off the ground. But I do think it's easily transferable to other programs all the way up into the older grade levels. And I think if there's one thing I leave you with tonight, I hope it's that idea that this should be upwardly extended into the older grade levels, but we need staffing to do that. You know, there's not enough social work, psychology, et cetera, in the district at this point to meet these needs, in my opinion. And that's why we have to bring in my mind, we have to bring in community resources as much as we can. They're providing these services, but they're not providing them at the level that we would need them to and would want them to. Many of our children leave school during the day to go to a counseling session and come back. Well, they've missed 3 hours of instruction to do that 1 hour of counseling sometimes. So wouldn't it be better if that were offered in the school setting in some way so they could not have that much instructional time lost?
Yes, Member Sork.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rogers. Having had the opportunity to work with Dr. Rogers for a long time before I retired, and sitting on 504s and IEP meetings with him, I believe he's absolutely right. We do need to do something. We need to have a plan to move forward, make it all levels, K through pre-K through 12. We don't have that right now, but we need it. And we do have PCHC at the high school now, a small office going.
Yep.
And we're added another psychologist this year, trying to add, but I believe we need more, and we need to work with our staff, train them to be prepared for this, because some of the kids coming through, it was bad when I left in 2013. It's only gotten worse. So we need this help. And I think we need to listen to this, Dr. Rogers, and do something constructive about it.
You know, one thing I didn't really hit on, and I should have, is just professional training for your staff. You know, just professional training on the effects of trauma and the differences in how children with trauma histories respond emotionally to those without a trauma history. Because I think what we've learned the hard way is the strategies that work with the oppositional child who's being oppositional is different than the oppositional child who has a trauma history. And we need to be making that kind of inquiry into the needs of the child and making our interventions based on that.
Member Hassanen.
Thank you for the great presentation. So my question is, if ideally in a perfect world, if we had the funding and the candidates, what would be like the ideal number of psychologists and social workers? If we were to get the funding again and so forth, because I know you did mention that we need more. So what, in your expert opinion, would be good?
In this district, we don't have a full-time psychologist. We don't have one. So I'm contracted. I've been part-time. There are other part-time people. And I'm off the top of my head because I didn't plan to answer that question. I would say you would probably need 4. No. Because you now have 9 self-contained programs just in the elementary schools. You have self-contained programs at both middle schools. You have self-contained programs at Fairmount and Mary Snow. You have self-contained programs at the high school, but those are filling up. And what you really need, and I think what we've tried to do in the Vine Street kind of model, is not get kids going into those programs, divert them out somehow, give them the support so they don't need that level. It's going to take a lot of person power to do that.
Member Surratt.
Yeah, I want to echo my colleagues. I really appreciated the data-driven report and the recommendations that come from it. So thank you. and I don't know if Superintendent Tager might be the best to ask, and I, I'm not trying to put people on the spot if you don't have the information now, but you mentioned several times the student to teacher ratio and how important that is. I think you mentioned 25 to 1. And I know you're using that as a hypothetical, but
Right,
I
right.
agree that teacher student ratio is critical. And I don't know, Superintendent Tager, if you have an idea of what our student to teacher ratio is, maybe at the
I
elementary,
can bring
middle,
it
and
back to you, but
Yeah.
yeah, lower than that in our elementary schools. Yeah. That's more of a
imagine it would be
ratio of our middle school that you're talking about.
Yeah, and to me, it's not so much the number, it's the intensity. So if I could easily, well, not me personally, because I'd be terrible at managing a classroom, I've decided. But I could easily see a gifted teacher working with 18 kids, right? Even if some of them were special needs. But when you're talking about, a situation where children are capable of explosive behaviors, capable of disrupting to the point that the classroom has to be evacuated and you have one person there, how do you manage that situation? There has to be a crisis plan, or you need additional person power in there.
Right.
And I don't want to get political, but the legislature has passed Chapter 33. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the regulations on restraint seclusion. And it tells us very, very specifically about when we can and cannot move a child. So if a child is explosive in the middle of the classroom, then we are not able to move that child. We move the classroom. But that still requires more than one person, because someone has to stay with the child in the classroom setting. So that's where we get into tight situations. It's not that a teacher isn't able to, manage a group. It's when there's a problem. Where do we go for those resources?
But you would agree, the larger the group, the more opportunity there is for those difficult situations where
Absolutely.
the classroom can no longer be the least restrictive environment,
Absolutely.
and someone has to.
Right. Absolutely.
It's important. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I
Thank you-
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to speaking with you again. Mentor program update.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Yes, Mentor Coordinator Julie Kimball will share an update on the new mentoring program.
Good evening. So I'm actually going to pass out an updated packet to you because my numbers have gone up since you got your packet last week, so. Bear with me.
Thank you.
So good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to give you an update. I wanted to just start off by kind of talking about the foundation of what our mentoring program has become. As I've been meeting with folks in the community and when they ask the question, so tell us about your program, I start by saying that we have 3 avenues. So the first avenue is community. So what I've been doing is reaching out to folks in the community, businesses, agencies, individual residents, whoever reaches out with questions. And I've been asking, how are you affiliated or have been affiliated with our school department? What connections have you had currently and in the past? Because quite honestly, being new to the Bangor School Department, you have to start somewhere, so I had to really begin at the kind of the base, establish a baseline of kind of, what's been done. And I don't want to kind of impede on things that have already been put in place. So it's been very eye-opening talking with many folks at our community about, quite honestly, Julie, we have these things that are coming up that we'd like to have your students involved in, but we didn't know who to reach out to. So, I found that I've kind of become this kind of community liaison a little bit with this position, in the fact that it's allowed me to kind of be that person that they can say, if we're seeking out this, can you find folks to participate? And, I can't thank the administrators enough, because they've been really wonderful. Anytime that I've kind of reached out with different opportunities and putting it out to staff and saying, is this something you're interested in? And they've been awesome. The other part to community has been from the personal standpoint. So as I'm meeting with folks like Redmond and Winchell, Northern Light, Bangor Savings, and so on and so forth, it's also presenting it to the fact that you are individuals. So outside of what your role is professionally, you have things that you bring to the table. You have interests. So like, let's say I'm a photographer outside of what I do, and I really want to bring that back to students. That's an option. So I think, it's much bigger than just the, career and college readiness, the workforce prep. It's more of the relationships. And that's what I value most about Mr. Tager and I really kind of kicking this off, is the fact that we're very like-minded in that respect, in the fact that our students are driving what this program is going to be. It's really based on their needs and desires and interests and wants. And they're really going to take us where we go. So the first avenue is community, second is staff. So one thing I did very early on was I created a survey that I sent out to every staff member. So not just teaching staff, not just admin, it's custodians, secretarial staff, everyone in the school department got the same survey, and basically established this kind of baseline of what are your interests? What have you currently been doing with students outside of what your role is? So, we know as, if I'm the classroom teacher, I'm connecting with my students in a much different way than when I put on a different hat. If I'm a coach, if I'm an advisor, I've really been kind of peeling that back and determining what other roles folks have been doing. And I will tell you, what's been really eye-opening is the fact of how talented our staff is. It's amazing. We have business owners, we have folks that are leading nonprofits, we have folks that are connected worldwide. And I think that's been more eye-opening for me to say, I'm not even sure, probably these folks even in the room know some of the things that their staff do outside of school. And that's, my hope is to kind of put that information together and send it out to say, these are options that we didn't even realize they're just within our buildings currently, without even going outside into our community. So it's been awesome to see kind of the different, hats and things that they can bring to the table that we may or may not have even known. And the third avenue is peer mentoring. So this piece, I will tell you, and that's why I kind of gave you the updated numbers. I will tell you, just even in the last week, all of a sudden I am hearing from folks, our students who say, I want to start working with, fellow students. As we know, with the pandemic, we haven't been able to do that. A lot of that pre-pandemic, our high school students, middle school students were connecting with elementary students, and that was a regular piece. It hasn't been that case, unfortunately. We've had to kind of shut down and make sure everyone's staying safe, which was number one. And now we've kind of saying we can open the door a little bit. So we're now reconnecting our students with one another. And they're really excited about that. And, even those that are at the high school level, sometimes it's not our younger students that they want to connect with. Sometimes we assume that, I'm a high school student. Of course, I want to work with little kids. Not necessarily. Sometimes they just want to help their own peers within their grade level. So it's been, really interesting to kind of establish what their needs and wants have been as well. I just wanted to kind of take you through the top sheet just a little bit. You'll see my school connections. So just general kind of meetings and connections that I've made since the beginning of the school year. And then I wanted to highlight in particular 2 of our school community events that I have been fortunate to be a part of. I was working with Jason Johnson from the Bangor Fire Department, and he and I reached out very early on this school year and connecting like what involvement has the fire department had within our schools in the past. And so one thing, he really talked a lot about was the fire prevention. Of course, here we are kind of, the end of October, so that this is a hot month for fire prevention. And he said, Julie, I'm going to tell you, if you can get me into schools, I was in one classroom last year because of the pandemic, and we want to be back in schools. I said, okay, I'll see what I can do. So I sent out information to our administrators. and said, if you want to do it, I'll organize it. Like, just put it out to your staff. Let me know who wants to do it and I'll take it on and do it. Because the last thing I want to do is add to administrators' plates. I really look at my role as kind of taking some of that, and more that I can own that they don't have to. I'm happy to do that. So we were able to coordinate with Fruit Street, Mary Snow, Bangor Regional, and I know Shannon organized with Jason for Abraham Lincoln, but we had over 40 classrooms that had visits this year compared to 1 from last year. And what was super cool is the fact we were able to bring the fire engine to Bangor Regional. So I actually made a point of going that day, and it was pretty awesome. They were actually in full gear. The kids got to see the whole thing. They couldn't go in the engine. Hopefully next year, when COVID hopefully will go away sometime. But it was awesome. They literally took them completely around the vehicle, answered any questions they had, and it was just a really awesome experience to see those students take part in that. The other event that I wanted to highlight was on April 13th, we had PSAT Day. So our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors take part in PSAT testing at the high school. So Adam Leach, who is the guidance department head, approached me my very first day on the job and said, Julie, we have this date kind of in place. Would you like to help me coordinate an event for our senior class? And I said, okay. What is it going to look like? And he said, what I'd like to do is bring in guest speakers to kind of present to our seniors. So we did. We had a senior breakfast that morning, and we coordinated staff presenters and community presenters. We had yoga. We had a housing presentation. We had Officer Taylor Hill come in and talk about laws that apply when you turn 18, different things that only apply to our seniors. And the real premise of that is to try to have our seniors come that day, because, it's hard when you're not testing, quite honestly, to get them to come. And I'm happy to, kind of report, we had over 100 seniors this year come. That has not been the case in the past. The other piece is it was some fabulous feedback from the actual students themselves saying, thank you for, this information. I didn't know about some of these things. So when I look at our first year of kind of this approach, it's never been done before. And when we think about next year and thereafter, there's a lot of potential of really kind of, pulling it together and creating a really nice event for our students. So. And I had kind of mentioned some of our community connections. It's pretty much every day that I'm connecting with someone in the community. So I mentioned, Redmond and Winchell and Northern Light. I've connected with UMaine, DEP, so on and so forth. And right down to, as I have tattoo studios on here. I mean, I've had students who have reached out who said, Mrs. Kimball, I have an interest in that. Can you find somebody? So that's what I try to do every single day I'm in there, is really trying to connect students with different interests and career pieces. So the other piece that I wanted to just review were our numbers. So this is where you'll see from your original sheet until now. I believe the sheet you had initially received had a total of 259 mentors. As of today, we're at 275. Now, what I've done, as you'll see at the very bottom of this sheet, is you'll see that we have 163 folks that are brand new to mentoring. So kind of breaking that 275 apart, and 112 people that I would consider to be current mentors that have been mentoring students previous to this year. So it's just recognizing those efforts. You'll see the peer mentor number has also risen, as well as the community number. And I wanted just to highlight kind of the numbers in particular. What you'll see with our staff total, I will tell you what our focus was to start the school year. And it was really to promote kind of staff mentors, find out who was mentoring, who wants to mentor, and all of that. And the real premise behind that, I think, had to do with partially with COVID. We didn't know what the school year was going to start off with. We knew, our intention is to have people come in our buildings and do all of that. But I think we said, we're going to start with staff first. We don't have to do background checks because they're already employees. So we can kind of hit the ground running and get moving. So that's where, you'll see that number be quite large. And then again, with the peer mentoring, the kids, once that, has really started the talk of the town, it's just taken off. And I, anticipate that number will continue to rise. So now what we're seeing is that focus on community. So that's, as I'm having conversations with folks, and I will tell you, as of when I left my office today, that number is actually at 20. So it's just continuing to rise slowly but surely. As I'm meeting with, different companies, like an example, UCU. I met with a representative last week. I've already gotten 4 mentor applications from that one meeting. So it's that piece that, we're slowly but surely kind of building and growing. The other piece that I want to really kind of emphasize is the importance, as I keep sharing with everyone, it's for all students. So when I did a presentation last week at Bangor Regional, I said to the staff, it's all students. My job is to make sure that all of our students have a connection that works for them. And again, they are the ones that are driving the work that I'm doing. So, I can't stress that enough, given the fact of, the nature of each individual student we have within our school department and their needs and their wants and desires. The reality is, if I can find it, I will, and that's, I've been very fortunate so far to have very supportive staff members who have reached out and said, Julie, if you haven't connected with this person, connect with them. Julie, if you haven't done this, connect with them. And I think I'm thankful for that because, again, being new to the Bangor area, where do you start? And you had to start somewhere, but it's really nice. So, I can't encourage folks enough. If you have neighbors, if you have friends, if you know of retired educators, or, the world is very large that, please, I can't encourage them enough to reach out. I'm happy to have them part of, our program. And, as I said, I tell this story every time. I had a custodian at the high school who stopped in and saw me one morning, and he's chatting away and he's like, Julie, I got your email about that, that mentoring thing. And I said, mm-hmm. And he goes, I'm not really sure the impact I'm going to have on kids. I said, okay. As we stood there were at least 4 students that walked by. This was at 7:30 in the morning. Hey, so-and-so, hey, so-and-so, hey, good morning. Oh my gosh, my favorite custodian. And they all went on their way, went to class. And I said to him, no impact, huh? It's like, that's what I want folks to understand. Again, it doesn't matter your role. It's about relationships and how do you connect with a student? And that's what they'll remember. So, any questions?
Thank you so much. That was really great. Yes, Member Surratt.
Great, thank you for the report. Appreciate it. I was wondering, you mentioned UMaine, and I was wondering about teacher preparation programs. Have you had opportunities to speak to the education coordinators at places like Husson or University of Maine? And I have relationships with those folks too, and I'd be happy to reach out.
So I have connected with UMaine. So I'm in the process of connecting with the other universities. But yeah, and any connections that folks have, I am more than open to that and would be appreciative of direct connections to folks.
Yeah, I think those pre-service educators their students would be excellent to be potential mentors. But I'll connect with you on that.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Talk to those folks. I did want to just clarify a few things on the chart. So the column participant numbers.
Yes.
So for Fairmount, it says staff. So there's 34 members that are staff at Fairmount that are mentors. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow, Fairmount really
Well,
hit it out of the park.
Fairmount has taken on an advisory approach very similarly to the high school this year.
Okay.
So that's where they have really interconnected their classroom teachers and a lot of their support staff with students every day. So that's a new approach that they've taken on. So that number is high because of that. That's a majority of their staff is participating in that.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Member Hassanen.
And this is not a question really, but I wanted to thank you for this outstanding work that you're doing. It's really garnered like so much attention. I have people at work asking me about it and like people from neighboring schools. So this is really wonderful. And I have to tell you too, the work that you've done with the seniors is amazing. Like to hear it from seniors themselves is really telling, you know, how exciting this is and the yoga and all that stuff that has happened. So thank you for your great
Thank you
work.
very much.
So I too want to thank you. And I would also like to challenge all of my fellow committee members to reach out to you to become mentors. I have not done that yet, but I will. And since Member Caruso, I can't actually, beg or plead, but I can beg and plead as a community member who has this incredible connection and longevity to potentially, and you have his email, so.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
And then we have an October 1 count report or
Yes.
update.
Yeah, this will be brief, but it's very telling from what Dr. Rogers shared. And Christy Babin will be very interested in this, I'm sure, as well. Overall, our numbers are up by 36 students for subsidy purposes. This is the part that I want to make sure the school committee connects with. Special education is up 88 students this year, which is a huge leap. So 88 students more in special education. Economic status is down 34 students. However, all students are free lunch, so there's no need for forms to become part of the free lunch, but staff did a great job getting parents to fill them out this year. So that is why that's down 34. But I want to commend our administrators for getting to that point based on the fact that everybody has free and reduced lunch this year. Tuition students are down by 19 students. The senior class had a large number of tuition students last year. We are working very hard on showcasing the positives, specifically at Bangor High School, to attract more students to our schools. Our communications director, Ray Finney, has been working on this with Mr. Butler, and I think that you'll see some things that'll be very interesting to increase our student enrollment for tuition students. So we're working on that now. We hope to make all those connections long before we decide on our schedule for next year, which will be the 3rd of January.
Fantastic.
If
Thank
you,
you.
and Chairperson, if you would like us to do an update on that at a later point, a different meeting, we can do a presentation on that for you.
Yeah, actually, I think that would be great. And I
Okay.
think, again, if there's any opportunity that you need, I know you have 3 committee members alone who have high school students, but we all very much care and we want to do whatever we can to help with those recruitment numbers, because we all know students who are from different schools who have chosen Bangor and they can't be happier with that choice. And so we want to make sure to get that word out and make sure that they know that Bangor is the place for them. Is there any other questions from the committee? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And then let's see, we have an update on the dress code. Let's see.
Yes,
Yes.
Bangor High School Principal Paul Butler will update the committee on the dress code.
Thank you. So I spent last week or so talking to a lot of different folks that I'll reference. Superintendent Dana Carver-Bieler, the principals, hall monitors, students and others, just to gather to some degree answers to questions that were raised at the last meeting. Some of them partially answered, so I'll won't correct anything because I had it pretty accurate. Actually, we'll make one correction and extend answers or clarification around things that were partially answered. But I guess just start with dress code, and also appreciate Landon Bean. I know that his document will probably make its way to the high school soon. Talk about supports for transgender students, bathroom access, and the question about menstrual products in bathrooms. So beginning with dress code, I know that Superintendent Tager, in direct response to the student, and then also communicated in the school, was the honest overture for students to, if they had concerns about the dress code, to go directly to student council, either in writing or in person. None of those things surfaced. There were no students that came to the student council. That doesn't mean there aren't concerns that that are still out there about the dress code. I say it's an honest overture because the last time that the language of in the student handbook around the dress code was modified, it was with the urgency and the direct, I guess, over a couple of years support of the student group at the time was known as WIGS, the Women's Interest Group. They had some concerns about maybe the policy, but more so the language of the handbook and how it was implemented and how it was framed. So there were two students in particular, one that persisted from a first year into a second, and then a second student that came in and sort of finished off, where we literally, was a foray into Google Docs, probably 6 or 7 versions that were color coded, and a collaborative process that resulted in the language, sort of the spirit of implementation of the dress code, having been directly influenced by the work of students. And that was when the group was led by, Women's Interest Group was led by Ms. Throckmorton, who 4 years later now has merged that group. It morphed into Students for Gender Equality, and now the LGBTQ Gay Straight Alliance. So they're all in one group. It's quite a mouthful, so they determined that their group name would be Q+, and it's led dually by Mrs. Throckmorton and Mary Sue Schuling. So I give that a little context because that is an honest overture for student groups. It doesn't have to be student council. I like to think that a lot of adult ears are open to anytime students have concerns. Those are the formal pathways. And hopefully on the strength of having done this type of work before, where students address sensitive issues or things of concern to them, having a pathway to real tangible results. Just my way of saying I hope that students will take those opportunities. So in terms, generally speaking, the dress code, I met again with assistant principals today. The major issue with midriffs is not about a single inch or two gap. It's really when the entire midriff is and I'll tell you, the first time that we dealt with this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and there was a student that had a real strong concern about it. When we looked at it at that time, we were addressing that concern of really open bodies with more male students than female students. And to date, there's not been a student that gets directly disciplined for anything associated with the dress code. They might get heated, upset. They might time out by parents' request. We've had tremendous parent support. As much as there's passion about this, and I understand it, it's not materialized to the point where students are strongly objecting. But again, the overture is there if there are concerns about the implementation. That was really been our focus. We wanted students, when they read the handbook, to understand the spirit of the implementation, that it's meant for safety and not to be oppressive, but to really support students engaging in school and in professional and productive ways. There was the suggestion that students, and again, what I think of as sort of an egregious example of students being asked to put on bras, inappropriate comments by staff, et cetera. Dana Carver-Ballard has dug into all those, can't find any evidence that those things that were described had taken place. So that doesn't mean that there aren't still concerns about those things, but nothing of the nature that was described as so serious as something like that would obviously give alarm and concern. Dana's dug into those things, and none of the primary or secondary folks have surfaced that said, yes, that happened to me, or I'm aware of it happening. Transgender students, I can't say enough about having Dana Carver-Ballard in the role of affirmative action and Title IX coordinator. She's present, she's active, she's on the ground resource, she's a formal resource, she's an informal resource, she's a smart person, and she brings a perspective and an accessibility that is absolutely critical to a role like that at the high school. She's been wonderful. She informed a lot of the things I'm going to share with you tonight. Single stall bathrooms. This is my correction point. We have 5, not 4. We've made a point of centering a lot of our student resources in the main artery of the building. If you're familiar with the high school, it sort of dumps into Lower B lobby. That's become less of a thoroughfare with the scheduling and the, the things that we've done for safety and prevention reasons. But those between the school nurse, the resource officer, Ms. Carballo's office, the social worker, they're strategically placed there to have awareness for students, ability for collaboration and those types of things. And those are the spaces, the nurse's office, the social worker's office have single stall bathrooms. Down the hall to our guidance in, as people that are leaving the high school might think of as exiting the high school, there is a single stall bathroom there. I think 5 years ago, in the wing up by what you might call PE, but everybody calls it Hutch's room, up in the back corner of the building, there are two single stall non-gender identified bathrooms. They're accessible for students. One was really not in use because it was an annex space that was necessary for the multi-handicap program. It was a student that needed certain manipulations and privacy. And school committee was wise, I think, a few years ago in the special ed program to invest in the bathroom in multiple handicap, invest in some more equipment. So that's a more self-contained private space for them, opened up the ability to have two single stall bathrooms that are right off the cafeteria that are immediately accessible from the gym area. And they've been a real asset. We know that students access those frequently as well. So 5 total. The law is clear, and we're committed to the law around students of their gender expression, their comfort level, accessing the bathroom of their preference. It doesn't mean the presence of those bathrooms and the availability and Ms. Carver literally walking students through the building to show them what their options are. That doesn't mean they're limited to those. She couldn't find any evidence that a student was specifically limited or told not to access. The law is very clear. She's done a lot of work to make sure that even in what you might think is traditionally stressful situations, PE, what's involved changing, the coaches, the PE teachers are aware that students may approach them, that they need to provide options, and all evidence that I see and that Ms. Carvalho can see is that we're consistent with those things, that access is available and options are given if a private bathroom is desired for a student. One thing that I'm not sure if I recall this as a concern, but it would be obviously get somebody's attention that there was an incident where there was a specific confrontation of some type, that the student was in a bathroom but didn't conform with what they might be expressing as gender and were told to leave. The only thing that we have no evidence of that, but we have stepped up surveillance and monitoring in bathrooms. There's been some behaviors that have surfaced that there aren't what we expect. There are things that have been a little bit more persistent than we want. And so between our hall monitors, assistant principals, teachers in those areas of the building have made a point of stepping up and being present, and not in an invasion of privacy kind of way, but just stepping up monitoring. And that adult presence can sometimes signify that place isn't open to me, but that's not been what's communicated. So those types of monitorings of bathrooms are more about safety, student behavior, preservation of those spaces than they are anything to do with monitoring for gender access. One thing that onto sort of the presence of menstrual products in bathrooms, that I think it was, I can't recall exactly, 4 or 5 years ago, the Students for Gender Equality WIGs at the time brought the initiative to have those bathroom staff, the female bathrooms, what you would identify as female bathroom staffed with menstrual product, feminine hygiene products. For the last 2 years, that provision has extended to all bathrooms. Over the last year, we've had incidents where kids are destroying, not using those items that are in the male bathrooms appropriately. So in combination with the students from the Q+ Club, the decision was made to pull those items to still make sure students understand how and why they're available, And, in addition to discipline, if we have to deal with it, we have an educational component. So we're appealing to any student, if we do place those items back, we're coming up with language on a laminated card that appeals to the responsibility of leaving products alone that might be for someone's use. So messaging, we're coming up with language around that, and we'll seek to put those back in and hope that the monitoring and the messaging and the appeal to goodness not only in behavior, but goodness and consideration of others who might need those things. My experience is the combination of things is pretty powerful and the problems disappear. And I would say, access remains a priority. Access to physical materials that make you feel comfortable and can care for yourself in the school. Access to people who care about you. Access to avenues to express concerns are important. And in my review, I believe all those things are there. There's always room for improvement, but I think we have the type of people and type of students and the type of soft and hard touches, I guess. Hard touches in terms of discipline, soft touches in terms of messaging from the superintendent, opportunities for students like Landon and Marianne to be here and to have direct contact with the superintendent. I hope we're conveying and walking the walk that Bangor High School is a safe, accessible place for all students, regardless of where they are in terms of expressing their identity and accessing school for educational and co-educational experiences.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butler. Questions from the committee? Member Mundell?
Thank you for that. Couple questions. So the midriff issue, I know we're probably going to have to agree to disagree on this. You say it's a safety issue. So I'm just wondering how that is a safety issue.
Well, we framed what I meant to speak around the safety issue and the casting of the policy and the language in the handbook. We said, we want students to all feel safe in this building. And when I recall the back and forth with the students, it was all healthy, really good kind of philosophical and practical discussion. Safety is reflected in the policy around even footwear and weather appropriate attire. And safety at the high school level could mean, freedom to express yourself without criticism. And so I didn't mean to suggest that a bare midriff or an 2-inch exposed midriff is a safety issue. I don't believe it is.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I guess, my perspective on this is that, these are kids. They're in a developmental phase of their lives where they're going to push boundaries.
Mhm.
And I think it's healthy for them to do that. And I kind of feel like if the boundary that they're pushing isn't hurting anyone else, then we should let it go.
Mhm.
And that, I know one argument for a rule like that is that it can be a distraction for other students. But I think, those other students need to learn that they can not be distracted by that kind of thing.
Right.
And have it instead, I feel like the onus is on the female body to protect itself from the gaze of the men. And that puts girls, I think what people often don't understand is that puts girls in an automatic position of feeling like they are to blame if something goes wrong. So I just want to put that out there just for thought.
Yep.
I had 2 more questions. The locker rooms.
Yep.
So if I'm a little concerned about kids having to go up to a teacher and say, where can I go to the bathroom? Is there a way that at the beginning of the semester that teachers could proactively say, these are the bathrooms, this is.
Yeah, I believe that happens.
Okay.
That does happen. And in a discreet way, you all know Dana. She has a way of connecting to kids. So in her own discreet way, she's having those types of reinforcing conversations as well. If a student enrolls or a student, decides to start presenting in the way that they feel and needs some support in that way, she's having those types of conversations on how to access. But the PE teachers were honestly thrilled to have those adjacent bathrooms for student access, and they frequently use them.
Okay, great. And then as far as Landon's proposal, what's the next step on that? Is that something?
Love to
the
get my
high
hands
school's
on
looking
it.
at? Okay, so it's not, it hasn't gotten to you yet, I guess. is-
Nope.
Okay.
And this proposal does have what bathroom / locker room will be used.
Right.
So I think this goes to speak to what you were just talking about.
Mm.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
any, what,
Oh, one more?
Wait. Member Hassan? Okay, so I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. So first off, I don't think that I'm as troubled by the midriff issue as Member Mundell. What I'm troubled by, and I think that you've clarified it, is what I understand as misapplication of the midriff rule.
Mm.
That there's some students that are sort of getting called out, and then there's other students that are not, especially if you have a body
Mhm.
that is not stereotypically appropriate to be wearing, to be having a midriff. So that's the kind of thing that if you could, I mean, it sounds like that there's avenues and that people are not being called out, but then I'm hearing, but again, Yes.
Discussions like this, I
Yeah.
hope would communicate that it's safe. If there's somebody quietly having endured something that doesn't sit well with them, you got 7 members here, 8 people who are really interested in those voices being heard and surfacing in a safe way if they want, and would invite that to happen. I think we do send that message to kids, and we'll double down with not only the support groups, because even though students, it's not as though every student makes its way to a support group or an affinity group around issues, but we try to communicate things in a way that say you can raise issues. We don't want anybody to feel as though they're treated differently. And if we have some fine tuning calibration to do, we're all for it. And Tim and Brian, Mr. Doyle and Rita, they have a sliding window between them for a reason. So I've known them to be really receptive. They wouldn't like the perception to prevail that they're not aware. They're enlightened people. They have a tough job. It's not always easy to love the assistant principals. And there's arbiters all over the place, and we should be our own best arbiters on this type of stuff. So concerns heard. We'll double down on the overture to have students raise concerns, even for past things that haven't quite sit right with them.
thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is exactly one of those situations that the app is useful for.
Right, yeah.
That we created that,
Sure.
oh my gosh, 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
In
no,
response to other issues
Right.
that community members had brought up that we were, being responsive to. And I understand from students at Bangor that Dana and the school has done a really phenomenal job by putting information in the bathrooms.
Yeah, it's
So,
a finer point on this, this appropriate use, and it's sophomoric stuff. It's not sophomores. I'm not. Just, you think it's funny? It's not that funny. It's
Yeah.
sophomoric, and there's a law and order component to it. There's also,
Mhm.
reminder about what it means to be a human being component that is always part of the conversation. So we'll trust Dana to
excellent.
use add to the literature of the bathroom.
I hear it's good. And then my final question is, so I'm confused. We had heard that there are feminine products in all of the bathrooms, but it sounds like that there are not, but you're in the process of putting that with the added
Yeah.
signage
So they've
because
been
of,
told, honestly, the problems you might have inferred are in the boys' bathroom. I think it's funny to do silly things with the
Right.
products, and it's wasteful and it's irritating.
Mhm.
And like I said, the Q Plus group would sort of endorse the idea, yeah, let's rethink this. Let's pull in Fennell. Let's make sure that no student will go without. But let's try to find a better way to address this issue and stick to the thing that we wanted, which is to have them available, but make sure it's not wasteful and that we're being responsive and educational too.
and we expect those to be back in all of the restrooms.
Right away
by-
soon, as soon as the laminator's up and can get those messaging points
Fantastic.
on there.
Are there any other questions, Member Mundell?
Yeah, just a follow up to what Member Hassanen and Sichters are saying about the discrepancy in which, the ways these are often enforced. And I think, there's research out there that shows that larger girls and girls of color are more likely to be dress coded
Mhm.
for skin showing.
Right.
So I'm concerned that even though the intention might be perfectly legitimate, you want your kids to look professional, that it might not be being applied.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I know we
Yeah.
don't really keep the data on that, but so is there, if we are going to stick with this, I wish we wouldn't, but that's just me. If we are sticking with this, is there a way to make it so that female staff are the ones enforcing it?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna, but that, for their own comfort level, the comfort level of the students, that's very often the case. Annex the school nurse or the social worker, just because those dynamics are there. And it's gives people pause for the right reasons, right? But there are plenty of female staff members that are willing to team up in tandem, and they're not easy conversations to have because they are sensitive and people are probably developing, and it's I would say it's a growth edge we're on. And but there's not a person unwilling to be a side support, tandem up, and there's not people, Mr. Reader, Mr. Doyle, or myself, who don't approach those things with awareness and sensitivity. But that's points well taken, and might want to be part of protocol, discrete protocol.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And a report of resignations.
I'm accepting the following resignation: Ashley Enright, grade 2 teacher, Down East School.
Thank you very much. Business action items.
I'm recommending approval of draft minutes of the October 14th, 2021 regular school committee meeting.
Any discussion? Yes, Member Mundell?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, Mayan Friedberg's name was misspelled in the minutes. It's Maayan. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. We'll correct that.
So do we do all those in favor with the correction? But I don't have to redo it. Okay, so all those in favor with the spelling correction?
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
And you, and
501, right?
we have.
5-0,
abs-
one
and
abstain.
abstention.
I wasn't.
Got it.
Personnel? Extra duty assignments?
I'm recommending committee approval of the following extra duty assignments for school year 2021, 2022. Katie Herbine, first year coach A, girls basketball, William S. Cohen School.
Need a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Motion carries 6-0.
And then we have a second reading of policies, and I will remind the committee that these are a legislative changes that have come down.
Can we take them all together?
Yes. Is there anybody opposed to that? Okay, yes.
Yeah, I'm recommending the second reading of new and revised policies. Revised policy BCB, committee member conflict of interest. New policy GBGB, workplace bullying. Revised policy IGBAB, child fine for special education and for related aids and services. New policy KDA, public information program. Revised policy KDB, public's right to know, freedom of access. Revised policy JHCD, administering medications to students in school. And revised policy JGF, use of physical restraint and seclusion.
Any motion? And any discussion? All those in favor?
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
And then we have committee member Hassanen is going to share the donation items.
Sure. To Vine Street School from Maniac Nutrition, 45 nutritional teas for faculty and staff, having a total dollar value of $270. Thank you so much.
So
Um,
moved.
And the only discussion that I would like to have is what an incredible, I mean, our community and what they do for us is really great. So thank you very much. All those in favor?
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
And committee updates. Any comments or questions from the committee? Yes, Member Surratt.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a brief update on the selection process for a committee. That process is ongoing. And Principal Butler and Dr. Leach. Our plan is to have someone in November 17th.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Member Surratt. Yes, Member Hassanen.
And just a quick update that I was the Maine School Board Association delegate assembly representative for our school board. And we passed several wonderful resolutions, and I have them all wonderful resolutions that help our students and our staff and our administrators, everything from teacher evaluation to multiple pathways, the right to strike, whether that was permissible or not, learning support, dropout prevention. And I believe that's it. And it was took about 4 hours, but we got through them. And I learned a lot for the second year. So I'm happy to share it with the rest of the school committee members as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Member Mundell.
Are we to committee reports yet? Or
Uh,
not yet?
Yes, representative reports.
Okay. We had 2 suicide prevention committee meetings since we met last year. And essentially the committee by policy meets at the beginning of the year to look at the emergency plan, to look at the protocols involving suicide prevention and procedures in the aftermath of a suicide. So this was my first time on this committee, and I was really impressed with the work that the committee did last year on this. Apparently the protocols for dealing with the death of a student by suicide were not very clear until this committee met. And they went through the entire thing, added a whole bunch of resources for staff to access. There are a couple streamlined charts in the emergency plan so that you can just go right to the chart if something happens and see, what you need to do at each step. So I want to thank the committee. I think they've done a really great job. So.
That's excellent. Thank you. Any other committee updates? And I mean, I just want to thank all of the committee updates really do a great job at helping us all understand and getting a clearer picture, because we can't all be at all of these. So thank you very much. Okay, we have no reports. So informational items. Monday, November 8th, we have our reorganization meeting. I think that will be the first one you haven't been to in a very long time. 11 a.m. in the council chambers. And Monday, November 15th, a board training workshop. That'll be 5:30 at William S. Cohen School. Wednesday, November 17th, our regular meeting here at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. It sounds like we're going to have some updates on student representatives, and we also hope to have some contract updates we will be sharing with the committee at that point. Wednesday, December 15th will be another regular meeting here at 7 p.m. in the council chamber. And any final questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Member Mundell.
Yeah, a while back, we talked about maybe having Mr. Heyman come and give a presentation on the COVID grants. And I had the opportunity to sit down with him and go over all the numbers, and it was really informative. And I would love for the whole committee to see that. And I've had some questions from the public about that as well, as far as where we're spending our money. So I was wondering if that was on the agenda coming up for a meeting.
We can add that, and I also have where Chairperson Sichters asked about requested an update on the increasing tuition students. So yeah, we can add that as well.
And the timing of that will be particularly good because we'll be seating 2 new committee members. So that'll be a great update. You're on the hook, Jerry. Any other final questions or comments? So I want to say one final farewell to Mr. Warren Caruso, who has just really been a backbone of this committee. Thank you very, very much for everything you've done. I also want to thank Landon, who has been bringing, who brought this form and has been bringing some of this stuff to our attention. And, we are really, really, truly committed to making our schools a safe, just a learning environment that's good for everybody. And I think I could speak for every single administrator in this room and that staff member and the teachers that, in heart, they want to do what's best for everybody. So we really are grateful for people that bring some, potential gaps to our attention. And, we are very much wanting to make this a great place for every student. So, so with that, and you know what, Warren, I'm going to let you do it.
Really?
Yeah, go for it. I guess we have ready. Okay, so I need a motion for adjournment of Warren's last meeting. Second? Fantastic. All those in favor?
Motion passes 6-0.
I don't think I ever did that. All my years as chair, I don't think I ever did that.
It's so much fun.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul.